I've got this Tesla Model 3 coming out. I've got one I'm going to show, and then you want to hit those three after that? Got some pretty cool Toyota Tundras. We've got a
Tundras. You got Tundras by who? Who is this in Japanese? I can't read Japanese.
supermodel.
Who is this by?
It's called
Supermodel.
Yep. And then there's a Subaru Levorg.
Okay. Let's go. Hey there, folks. Chuck here. Oh, what?
Wait, we're not recording.
Are we? Are recording. Yes, we are.
My bad. Just got myself in the intro.
Woo! My daughter watches this show called Bluey, and that's their expletives. They go, oh, biscuits. So now she goes, oh, biscuits, when something goes wrong. Are they British? Hey, biscuits. Australian, so essentially, yes. Well, we're going to get notes from the Australians about that. Biscuits. Oh, biscuits. Alright. I don't even know how to say it. Yeah, I can't. Anyways, there's probably a lot more vowels. We're recording? Yeah, we're recording for real this time. 1, 2, 3, serious.
You're watching Diecast Breakdown with Chuck Ellis, David Johns, and Mark McHotwheel. So sit back, strap in, and hang on. The breakdown starts now.
Hey there, folks. Chuck here. And yeah, we're back, all three of us this time. And this is super exciting, super fun to be back. I'm actually back in my work area studio, which is super fun. It's been persona non grata down here for a long time. And we're excited to be back. There's a lot of change happening, and a lot has changed since we started our hiatus. And now that we're back, we'll fill you in on all that good stuff. And then, of course, you got to stick around because we got Bruce Pascal coming up. And again, pay attention to those ad breaks because you might win something cool. So before we get into any of that, gentlemen, what is exciting you in the world of Diecast this week? David?
I'm glad you asked, Chuck. Full credit to our friend Matchbox Man. He's got a YouTube channel. Go look him up. He sent me some photos of some incredible diecasts coming out in 1/64 scale. We've got two Toyota Land Cruisers, which if you're watching on YouTube, you can see pictures now. We don't know the maker, so we will have more information we'll pass along on these in the future, but they look really cool. Check out Time Micro is a company that did this Tesla here. Time Micro is the parent company of a new diecast brand called Dream, and they are affiliated. Dream is the lower tier level of their diecast company, and they've got a Model 3 Tesla coming out. Looks really well done. Subaru Levorg, a vehicle I didn't know about, is coming out in 1/64 scale. We don't know the maker on that either, but I'll get you that information because it looks really good, as you can see on the picture below. Last but not least, before I turn it over to Mr. McHotwheel, Mini GT has a cool Hyundai Sonata coming out. Take a look at this, guys. All you guys like me that like street cars, this is another good one to add to your collection. And that's what I've got.
Stock.
That's what I got. Super stock. Super stock all the way. Check them out, guys.
Yes, David, thank you. There is a supermodel. I've never heard of this brand before, but they've got a Tundra, a new Tundra. The Tundras just keep getting bigger and bigger. They're huge. I don't even know how they fit on the road at this point. We've got a white one, picture below, and then we've got a black one. Looks like they've got some kind of contraption in the back to carry a ATV, snowmobile. Imagination is, sky's the limit on the imagination. I don't know what that's for, but it looks pretty cool. So anyone that's into also pretty much stock vehicles like David, that'll be a cool casting to pick up. I believe it's in 1/64 as well. So
Awesome.
keep your eye out for that.
Okay, cool.
Mr. Ellis?
Well, I'm about to start mine by being very on brand for me. First, I didn't have this when we were recording last time, but look at it, sir. It's here.
Just look at it.
Sir,
I just got it.
I didn't know you liked Herbie.
Really, I keep that really close to the vest. I don't tell a lot of people that, but
Never
you know,
talked about it.
but you want
It's a
to get,
big
but at
bang
this, yeah, exactly. I love all her movies. That one, Freaky Friday, Mean Girls. I guess. Anyway, actually, Mean Girls is really funny.
Lindsay Lohan.
Yes, I collect Lindsay Lohan memorabilia and also diecasts from time to time. But yes, so to have the Brendan Vituski little Herbie monster truck, that was very special because I know it is important to him, as it is his vision and it is his passion. And I think that's very cool. Even if I weren't a Herbie fan, I would think that's very cool because that was something that was so important to him and that he pushed through. And I think that's really cool. Speaking of Schuco, a brand that only David has heard of, and now the rest of us, has...
I have one.
I have one now too. Actually, I think I have two.
Sent by David sent it
No,
to me.
David made me buy my own, but I did. I am very glad I did. And they have lovely lensed headlamps and tail lamps. Thank you, David. But Schuco has decided to take on, speaking of Brendan, the attempt at the most awesome miniature Herbie recreation. They're releasing a 1/12 scale Herbie from Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. It is massive as Volkswagen models go.
It is big.
And yeah, it's expensive too. It's $499. Or
did you buy it?
I bought three. But no, I did not buy.
He's not joking.
They're all behind me right now.
They're in in your cart.
Exactly. I'm just waiting for the check to clear. They are actually not the most accurate. I think Brendan has still got the most screen accurate one, but it is very cool. It is a giant kit. I'm very curious to get that one. Other companies that I have not really heard of that much, but are fascinating to me. There is a 1977 Lincoln Continental Mark V Coloma pickup. Yes, you heard it right.
What?
Continental pickup in 1/43rd scale. And this one is by a company called SVAL Models, ESVAL. And it is available on Diecast Direct for pre-order. It should be out about the time that you're listening to this. It is a 1/43rd scale. And it is about $99.95, depending on where you buy it from. So it's not cheap for
So it's not $100.
It's not. You can see if that nickel is important. They also have a 1979 Corvette America, which is an open T-top C3 Corvette with four doors. It's pretty wild. And they're staring at that now. Mark and David are going, what is this? Because you did put it in the Google Doc, but they'll see it later and they will be amazed. Also, Hot Wheels Entertainment is bringing back the Back to the Future 3 cars for their premium Hollywood line. They've got the 1955 version with the white wall tires, and they will have the 1885 version with the train wheels, which is very cool. And I'm looking forward to adding those to my collection. And finally, a car that has been on my hit list for a while is coming out by a company called Replicars in 1/18 scale, is a 1950 Cunningham Type 61 Le Mans racer. But you might notice that it's actually a 1950 Cadillac. And yeah, it's wild to think of a Cadillac racing at Le Mans. It's wild to think of it as being a Cunningham. But yes, Cunningham was a racing company that was around in the pre-Carroll Shelby days. Shelby was racing then, but they were the original hot American tuner company. And they were based out of my own home state of Florida. So it's very cool. And it's a very cool Cadillac. It's got this awesome blue and white paint job and a number 3 on the side. And if you know anything about race cars, and number 3, you know that is the number of winners and intimidators. But yeah, I'm not going to talk too much longer about the news because I know we got a really cool guest coming up, but I just wanted to go around real quick and update everybody on what's going on in our personal worlds since we've had this hiatus. I thank everybody for your patience as we have retooled the show. We're retooling how we produce the show to make it faster and more efficient and more consistent for everybody. And I think that will be showing in the coming weeks as we start releasing on a regular schedule again. We are going to be starting with every other week. So every other week as we're working this through. So make sure you hit that little bell icon when you subscribe so you don't miss notification that we got a premiere coming out. Ding. You gotta hit the ding. But yeah, so I have started a new job. It has taken a lot of my time, but it is starting to even out. And I actually was able to spend some time this afternoon tidying up my work area, which is why I'm recording here, because this area has been a storage area for a very long time. And it is back. I know I owe a ton of you customs, and I appreciate everybody's patience with me as I've had to basically reinvent my entire life, but things are getting back on track. And I thank everybody who has stuck by the show and stuck by me and checked in and asked how I'm doing. It means a lot. So Mark, you've got a lot going on in your world too. So tell us a little bit about what's going on behind you.
Yes, sir. A couple weeks ago, my dad had a major event, basically died for about 6 minutes and was revived. And That was a big scare for us. And I just can't thank everybody enough in the Diecast community for prayers and emails and checking in. And he's doing great, just to let everybody know, because a lot of people are asking. My dad's back. It's changed my mindset on everything, priorities. So that's been my number one priority lately, is just to make sure, spend enough time with him and making sure he's good, and selling the house, and started a detailing business, and doing some really cool cars. I've got an NSX in the garage right now that I'm finishing up for a buddy of mine. And, so I've got some catching up to do. So if you haven't seen me, a lot of people have been like, Mark, where you at? You haven't posted any videos. I'll be back soon. I've got some unboxing videos to do. But again, everybody's kind words and prayers for me and my family while dealing with this has been tremendous. It's been really awesome. So I appreciate it a lot. I'm excited to be back on the show, and we can become more consistent, but maybe not. Maybe we need to we're dialing things back a little bit for you guys so that we can make more content for you. And I think that's great. And it's good to be back and to interview some incredible people. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Just, million things going on right now, but always willing to make time for this show to be able to bring the Diecast community together. We always stay positive on the show, and that's another thing I'd just like to say is just this show will always be positive. It'll never shed any negative light on anything or any person, and that's what we're about. So that's, if you want a place to come and stay positive and to talk Diecast, that's us.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that about this show and you guys. So that's Mark the Cop Wheel in a nutshell lately.
And before we get to David, just want to say again, we are so glad to hear about your dad's recovery. And it was without even getting into the YouTube stuff that happened, like just to have all this stuff happen at once, and then to get that call, that text from you in the group thread. I was just like, I was devastated. And I know David was too. We are so glad. It's just great to talk to you again, man. Cause it feels like forever. And then we had a false start with our last one because there were some technical difficulties. We're so glad that you're back with us, Mark.
Appreciate it. Yeah. My dad will be watching this.
That's amazing.
He's so near and dear to my heart. My dad is my hero. I can't say that enough. And I know he watches pretty much everything that I put out. He's making reference to jokes or whatever I'm talking about. My parents are big fans of me. I wouldn't be who I am today without them. So
that's awesome.
Big show.
Well, guys, it's hard to put my emotions into a quick snippet. We go through life. We're transparent. These viewers, listeners, the three guys that you're listening to right now, we're always going to be transparent. And we're always going to look for the good in every situation, even when it's tough. And Mark and Chuck went through a really rough patch, and I hated that for them. I really did. Thankfully, I haven't gone through any trial like that lately, but it brought us closer. And this team is stronger than it was and than it ever has been. And we are just delighted. We have got amazing things in store for this show. And we're so glad that you guys have enjoyed it so far and are going to be there with us in the future. So hang around. It's only going to get better.
That is a
well said,
fantastic way to put it. And with that, we are going to take a quick break. But when we come back, get ready to have your mind blown, because we are going to hear some amazing stories and see some amazing things.
That
even I going into it, I knew some of the stuff was coming, and it was still incredible. So stick around. Bruce Pascal is next.
We'll be back with more Diecast Breakdown after this word from our sponsors. Diecast Media Network wishes 4-year-old diecast fanatic Jameson a continued and speedy recovery. Check the show notes to learn more about Jameson's journey and see how you can help him and his family. Here's this week's small channel shout-out.
Tony's Diecast Customs.
If you have a favorite diecast channel with less than 700 subscribers and you'd like to see them highlighted on a future episode, email us at diecastbreakdown@gmail.com. Did you know 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts are a great way for Diecast Breakdown to grow? It's also a great way to help kids in need. For every review left on Apple Podcasts, Diecast Breakdown will donate 2 Diecast cars to Hot Wheels for Hope. Make a difference in a kid's life and help Diecast Breakdown reach new listeners by reviewing us on Apple Podcasts today. The Diecast Media Network store is here. Wear your passion with pride, featuring designs from Diecast Breakdown, Flying Valiant builds, plus unique designs inspired by diecast culture from Justin Ellis. Visit tpublic.com/Diecast Media Network now.
Hello, this is Diecast Dude from the Netherlands, and you are watching Diecast Breakdown.
We'd like to take a moment to thank our executive producer level patrons, First and 64th Customs, Video Geek Productions, Jonathan Von Nesh, Donald Rashik, and Twice Diecast. Please stick around till the end of the episode for our full list of partners and learn how you can support this project at diecastmedianetwork.com. And now back to Diecast Breakdown.
We are so excited today. We are sitting down with a diecast legend, if he doesn't mind me saying so, Mr. Bruce Pascal, who has one of the, well, okay, let's say it, the most fascinating diecast collection out there. And I say that as quite the collector myself, and sitting amongst collectors and sharing with collectors. There's a reason why you've heard of Bruce. And we're going to talk all about that and a whole bunch of other stuff and get to know Bruce a bit better. But first, Bruce, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Great to talk to you this evening.
We just had Mike Zarnock on and Chris Walker, and I'm sure that you, those guys, and have compared a lot of notes. So we've got all our Hot Wheels lined up to ask you how much they're worth. And no, I'm just kidding. but I think a lot of people know of you for your collection. Probably not everybody knows how you started with your collection. So let's go way back to the beginning and talk to young Bruce and figure out where this diecast passion started.
Sure. I was born in 1961. And as many, in May of 68, something very interesting happened. The introduction of the greatest boys' toy of all time, Hot Wheels, came out. And like every other kid, my parents bought them for me. I remember having the orange track, and before Star Wars came out, flipping the orange track and hitting my brothers with it, then hitting me back, setting up the supercharger. And like most kids, built up a small little collection. And then, I don't know the exact date, maybe when I was about 10 or 11 years old, put them in a cigar box, stuck them in my bedroom. Now let's take a little bit of decades going by. And then in 1999, my mom was cleaning out the room. How many people have that story?
Yeah.
And my mom called me up and gave me that box of Hot Wheels. I was walking home that evening with a guy in the same industry I work in, and I showed him the box of Hot Wheels, and he goes, "I'll give you $200 for them." I was like, wait a minute, these are worth money? And I've always been fascinated by cars. I was actually collecting real cars at that time. And I said, no, you know what? I'm going to collect. You're a buddy of mine. You collect. I'll collect. We'll do something together. Whatever I do, I only have one gear, fifth gear straight away. So within 2 weeks, I was running ads in the newspaper saying, are you in the 40s and you still have your original Hot Wheels? Because by then that was the magic era to be born in 1961. And I started buying collections, growing. And then 6 months later, I read in the paper, the rarest Hot Wheel in the world was for sale. And that's how fifth gear I was. I said, I'm buying it. And I just realized I've been a collector of something all my life. And to have the rarest Hot Wheel in the world for under $100,000, and the rarest baseball card was selling for $500,000, the rarest coin was selling for $2 million. I just saw the investment potential. And I never in my life, everything I collected from coins to cars, I could never afford a Ferrari. I could never afford a Honus Wagner baseball card. But you know what? I could swing it and figure out how to buy this rare Hot Wheel. And I did it. And that led to tons of beginnings of the super collecting, which introduced me to the world of former employees. And that's a whole other little story. Gladly get into it if we have time today. But that was the best road I ever took in this hobby.
That's amazing. You mentioned all those other collections. Was when you do stuff fifth gear, were there other collections that you were involved in as well? Or was it just like the diecast and then back to diecast?
So some Matchbox, some Hot Wheels, and some whatever I found. Fast 111s by Kenner. Whatever you would find. And by the way, I did probably every estate sale of anybody who deceased in the Washington area for the last 30 years. Whatever I could find, I would look. And many times I would just buy collections that had items that I didn't know much about. And that's how I started learning about them. I get on eBay, start researching. I'd get on later on, join Facebook and see what clubs are out there, listen to YouTubes. So it was a real educational, but I decided since I owned the rarest Hot Wheel in the world, that was going to be on my gravestone, the Hot Wheel collector. But I still buy other brands every once in a while, but they tend to only stay in my possession for a month or two. And then I tend to get rid of them. Wheel and deal, as my wife says.
Do you do a lot of individual car sales, or because you buy so many, do you do a lot of like bulk trading?
So my dream acquisition is you see a collection where you buy somebody's collection for 100 cars. And then what I would love to do is take the best 30 and put them on my shelves of what I collect. And then the other 70, I eventually get rid of. And I don't mind holding them for a while. So if they're Hot Wheels, I'll wait for the next convention, because there's really a thrill for me. And maybe I'm crazy of standing in a room, selling Hot Wheels, talking to people, negotiating. I think genetically, I come from a merchant DNA, and I love the wheeling and dealing. I do some eBay, and I did eventually open up a small private museum, and I hire this high school kid, and I give him 20%, whatever sells on eBay. And I usually give him anywhere from 500 to 2,000 items a year to sell for me. And that's how I dispose of all the other items.
That's cool.
That's incredible. Yep. You know, it's funny. We were just talking with Chris Walker because we all just registered for our first. None of us have been to a diecast convention before, and we just registered for the one in Las Vegas next year.
Wow.
So tell us a little bit about some of your takeaways from diecast convention life. Like, what are some of the things that you enjoy the most, and what are some advice bits that you might have for people who are looking to experience something like that?
So let me talk about, to start, the two major conventions. One's always in LA in October, and one's east of the Mississippi, usually in April. Imagine a hotel room, a hotel that has 500 rooms. Imagine 450 of them are people who are there for a Hot Wheels convention. Imagine somebody broke into a Walmart and stole 3,000 Hot Wheels and somehow set them up in a bedroom in a hotel. And that's what it's like going from room to room. So what's amazing about it is a guy like me who, let's say, is looking for red lines. I'm maybe only 20% of the rooms have red lines. So I'll walk into one room and it may be a customizer who came from Japan and showing his work. The next room could be Liberty selling boxes of what they're trying to sell. The next room could be a red line collector who's either retiring or selling some extra cars. Every room, it's absolutely heaven for a collector, because you never know what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden you hear in the hallway, a guy just showed up in room 1212. He's got over 4,000 cars. And then literally you're seeing people running down the stairs or up the stairs to get to this guy's room. It's excitement. And I will guarantee you each major convention has over $1 million plus of commerce going on. Now that is why Bruce Pascal shows up for 90% of it from me. They also have an amazing charity auction where Mattel will put some prototypes out and some great items. They also have a dinner where they usually honor somebody. It could be Larry Wood or another designer. And the nice thing about that is at the end of the dinner, they give everybody a car. Now you paid $75 for that dinner. You could walk out of that room and sometimes they'll give you $150 for that car.
Yep.
You also get cars that you buy for $35 when you're at the convention. Almost always one of them will sell for $200 that week, because there's only 1,000 people showing up to the convention and there's 50,000 plus collectors around the world. So there's a commerce and a collectability of the dinner cars, the entry cars. There's also events for children, from coloring books to treasure hunts or treasure hunting around the rooms and winning awards. There's racing, there's Sizzlers racing, customizing trophies. There's a little bit of something for everybody, is the great way of saying it. But the biggest enjoyment I get is meeting the collectors that I see every single year and learning from them more and more about Hot Wheels, or discussing cars, or all agreeing what color is a certain car. It's a great camaraderie. It's almost like a biannual get together.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Cool.
It is a lot of fun. It's 24-hour energy. Now I go to bed at 10 o'clock. Half the guys stay up all night. I don't know how they do it.
Energy drinks, I guess.
Bruce, can I ask you about the museum? Because I was fascinated at the types of stuff that you have collected. Not only do you have the best red line collection that's out there, that's undisputed, But you've also,
Nope, I'll disagree on that.
okay, I'm going to give it to you for tonight. Now,
Okay.
let's talk about, though, the super rare, cool stuff in the museum that you got that you really sought after from like former employees when you would talk to them, like some of the prototypes, some of the artwork. What can people expect to see that maybe if you go in thinking, I'm going to see some really cool Hot Wheels, what are they also going to see that would be a really cool surprise?
So let's say in 1968, David, you were a burglar and you broke into Mattel's headquarters. What could you take? But you weren't allowed to take any of the production cars. So how about if the first designer was Harry Bradley and I found the first 12 designs of his cars written out on the paper dated 1967? I have those. Let's say you went into the files and you saw projects of Mattel because the idea of Hot Wheels started in 1966 and they had internal memos that said car project about how to make it, how long it would take to hand carve the molds. I have those papers. Let's say you wanted to see one of the molds that were made, the mock-ups that they needed to make first before they made a car. I have 33 of those mock-ups to make different cars. Let's say you wanted to find the artistic drawings by Howard Reese and Ira Guilford of the Twin Mill, done in pencil. I have those. Let's say you wanted to go to the prototype drawer. Let me see if I can find one right now. They designed a car. They made some cars in brass. So you may have heard of a car. Let me see if I can pull one out to show you. You may have heard of the car called the Mighty Maverick, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Before it was going to call the Mighty Maverick, it was called the Mad Maverick. So I got the blueprints for the Mad Maverick in the back room. But to make the car first, they made cars out of brass. So this is in my hand, if you can see it, the brass car, handmade, probably took 400 hours to make this. And this was used sometimes for testing or sometimes for catalogs. So only one of one, the Mad Maverick in brass. And then sometimes they design cars and they never released them. So they made a car called the Dream Station Wagon. This is the brass of the Dream Station Wagon.
Look at
Now,
that.
if you look really closely and you know your Hot Wheels, what other
breakaway
car
bucket.
looks like that in the front? It's the breakaway bucket. So they whoops, don't want to drop these cars. They took this, they took the station wagon part off and made the breakaway bucket. Do you see how it's exactly like?
It's amazing.
So there you go. The breakaway bucket was 1977. This was 1969 probably made. So I love the really weird stuff. They made some cars. Everybody knows the Red Baron with the white interior
Oh, yeah.
in this car. A prototype. There it is right there. See the white interior?
Wow.
Look at
What is
that.
that?
Hope you can. So I like going for prototypes, blueprints, paintings, drawings. The original artist for Mattel was a guy named Odo Cooney. I found him, and then I told Mattel I found him, and they asked me to call Odo if he would agree to come back. So all the RLC paintings and work that he did, Odo Cooney did when he went back to Mattel for the last 10 years of his life. And when Odo Cooney passed away, his kids knew how much enjoyment he had from working at Mattel and the enjoyment that he had with me as his friend. And we became dear friends, that they invited me to his house and I bought his entire estate.
Oh my God.
So I have all the original printer's proofs for the original box artwork. So right behind me, for example, I modified it. You see this artwork that was taken from the printer's proof of one of the box sets. So I probably have 500 pieces of works by Odo Cooney alone. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. Prototypes, I probably have 200 plus original Redline prototypes, paperwork, you name it. That's the kind of stuff that just thrills me because it's very hard to find that. Everybody can find a blue Camaro. Not everybody can find the white Camaro. So that's everybody can find a Shelby. Not everybody can find the green resin Shelby made out of resin from Larry Wood's collection. Everybody can find a white Jackrabbit. I found one painted in red. Okay. So that's the kind of weird stuff. The last one I'll do before I bore you is everybody sees cars like this, the whipped creamer. And when you go to the store, the ones you buy had 3 lines on it.
Yep.
This is the prototype. So they must have looked at this and said, you know what? There's not enough action here.
Yep.
Let's add the vents. So I like, and of course it has the blue interior, which is not really production too. So that's an example. I think I showed you about 6 cars. I could show you many more. You probably heard of the cut fender twin mill. The first twin mills, the fenders didn't cover everything. So,
Wow.
and then I got to show you the last one.
All right.
Show us.
This is one of my favorites. This is the brass Olds 442 made out of brass.
Get out of here.
So
That's
one of
cool.
the rarest castings, most desirable. And there's only one of the brass Olds 442.
Yeah.
And of course I got the cheetah in here, and that's just one tray, and I got 4 other trays. So to me, it's collecting these prototypes and researching the history. Every employee I contacted, which was over 400 of them, I interviewed them extensively about their role at Mattel. And in the process, I learned about the painting process. I learned about the sales process, the manufacturing process. And Mattel was such a major company in those days. Half the people became engineers for airline companies afterwards. It was just a brilliant, amazing company, and still is today.
Now, your collection, and if I hope I didn't hear this wrong, but it goes so deep that when Mattel needs stuff that they don't have, they come to you. Stuff that they can't find in their warehouse.
So the story was Mattel a few years ago recognized that they didn't have all the red lines, didn't have a complete history. And to Mattel's credit, they hired a historian in-house. And as such, I told her and helped them, said, these are some of the things you should have. And I helped them get some of the original red lines. Other collectors also sold them different cars, different displays. So Mattel has built up a decent sample collection, and still has, believe it or not. One day I was in the design center. They opened up a drawer and there was a gigantic resin of a chop cycle rider. I made a deal with them, so I got it. But that's not too often you get those kind of deals. But I have traded items for them in the past.
That's fantastic.
They're great people to deal with.
That's awesome. Bruce, what in your collection brings you closest back to your childhood? Do you know what, is there a specific car or group of cars that you have? Do you still have that cigar box with the cars in them? I'd like to know.
I have a lot of cigar boxes. I'd say the interesting thing is I am not a guy that races my Huntons. And there are a lot of people who do that on weekends. But I open up my warehouse 4 or 5 times a year for kids to come. And to see these kids running around and playing in the track, and I set the track up with superchargers that are 50 years old with the big double D batteries.
Still working.
Yeah.
Okay, you remember those?
Yep.
And they're still working 54 years later, not as fast as they used to be. And then I find myself sitting on the ground, grabbing the cars. That brings me back to my childhood. And to think about it, in 1969, there were no real Atari sets or anything like that. And you could sit with a Hot Wheel with a supercharger going in circles for hours and then making 2 lanes and 3 lanes and loop to loop. So setting that up brings my childhood back to me. But more importantly, seeing the kids get excited just really makes me happy.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's why I like to give cars away to kids and charity and stuff like that, because they grab them and they're just so excited because it makes you feel good, because that's how excited you were when you were kids. So that's awesome.
And there was a huge culture in 1969. There was a Hot Wheels wallet. There was a Hot Wheels trash can, which of course I use in my office every day. The Hot Wheels trash can. Isn't it amazing? You can still see them on eBay. I had that trash can in my house growing up. Is that amazing? Then they have posters. So I don't know if you remember the old days, they had the Farrah Fawcett poster. So of course, Mattel made their Hot Wheels posters. One of the greatest days of my collecting life was I was visiting the art director of Mattel. He was the art director in the 1960s, 70s. And then I saw 2 framed posters on his wall. And I said, "Oh, you got the 2 posters." And he says, "Aha, go look at them closely." They were the hand done oil painting and watercolor painting used to make those posters.
Wow. So
They're both mine now.
Oh.
I made a deal with them. And I did research and found out one of them was done by a guy named George Bartel. If you buy any road and track or motor trend from the 1960s, you see this cool graphics. That was George Bartel. So they hired like the top graphic artist at that time to make those posters.
that's incredible.
That's amazing. So you brought up something, and it's a question that fascinates me, and it's something I like to ask all the collectors that we have on. The fact that you were born at basically the perfect time to experience Hot Wheels when it first came out. Now, I was born in the early 80s, and Hot Wheels were still like the ultimate. Boys mostly, but even girls, like my little 4-year-old,
Yeah.
she loves Hot Wheels and diecast. So what is it you think about diecast that's given it that staying power? That video game consoles come and go, and pet rocks come and go, and Beanie Babies and all that stuff. But Hot Wheels has been like, it came out hot. It came out on top, and it's stayed on top for 50 years. So why is that?
So I bring that back to the original question of why were Hot Wheels so popular in 1968? And I realized they were and I interviewed Elliot Handler, the president of Mattel, and he said, Bruce, they had playability. And I think that is a key word. There's 3 or 4 factors that I think were successful to the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and all the way today. Number 1, they're darn cheap. They're $1. You can make a crying kid happy for $1. As a parent who raised a couple girls and a couple kids, if you can make your kid happy for $1, sold every day. Number 2, they don't take up a lot of room. This isn't the 1-foot RC car with batteries. Nothing, no assembly required, easy to store. So that's number 2. Number 3, they're always a part of modern culture. For example, if the 16-year-old kid, when I was 8 years old and the 16-year-old kid had a Camaro down the street, hey, I had my Camaro. Mine was a Hot Wheels, he had his. Well, even today, if the cool dad's driving a Tesla and you have the Tesla Hot Wheel or the Mustang or whatever brand, how many kids learn automobiles through Hot Wheels and identification? So I think there's a connection between their parents driving cars and then they can have cars. And I think for young kids, that's really important. And last but not least, they're colorful, they're cute, and the packaging is cool. They're not sold in bland yellow Matchbox boxes. They're cool, from the flame
Loud.
in those original days to the cool blue colors today. It's not in a flat gray they sell this package in. They do all the marketing. So those are my theories of why 54 years later, we're going stronger than ever.
Yep.
That's very well said.
Thank you.
Well put. Thank you. Yeah. And I think it's interesting too. Like, I agree with you. There's like a whole tactileness to it. Like the fact that you can both hold them, display them, you can shoot them down a track. There's a lot of stuff you can do with them. You can customize them. You can smash them with a hammer. There's one of my favorite videos on YouTube is a guy just blowing them up with firecrackers and recording it all in slow motion. And it just looks super cool. But Hot Wheels has tried a lot of different things, and you've got a lot of those things in your collection. And one of the things that I had to ask you about is you've got a gas-powered prototype Thunderbird.
Yeah.
So I am like, and it looks insane. I don't know where to begin with that. It's got like you guys have got to go on his site and look at this.
It's got a sad ending, but let me tell you the story.
Okay.
When I ended up meeting one guy that changed my life in the Hot Wheels world, he was the president of the Mattel alumni. And this is back in 2000. We became friends, and he invited me to a Mattel alumni. And I go to the house, and I'm with all these former employees. It's like the wolf with all the chickens and going around, and they're like, oh yeah, I got Hot Wheels, call me afterwards. And people were telling me about the cars. And then the main guy I met, his name was Gable. Greatest guy. He was in charge of R&D. And their job was they were given a bucket of cars, nuts, bolts, screwdrivers. The budget wasn't that much. And from their thinking came the thoughts of chop cycles, flip out cars, crash cars, because they just played with rubber bands and angles. And they told me in one of these meetings, this is back in 2001, we even had a guy that put a miniature Cox airplane in a Hot Wheel. I go, are you kidding me? They go, absolutely. So I never found it. Life was great. And then one day a guy calls me and he says, I'm cleaning out the office. I'm trying to see. Give me a second. I'm cleaning out the office, and you probably can't see it, of a guy named Les Storman. I don't know if it's so clear you may not see it, but Storman's name is written right here, if you can see it or not.
You can see it.
So Les Storman was a creative guy. In his drawer was this piece of plastic, which was used for drawing, and the Hot Wheel with the gas engine. I go, are you kidding me? And he goes, yeah, I was the employee that took his job after he left. Do you want it? I said, do I want it? I flew that weekend to California to buy that car, to meet that guy, and to meet a couple other people and buy some collections. And it is an amazing car with a gas engine sticking out of it. So years later, in a pit of stupidity, I was convinced to sell it to a friend of mine who begged me. And then he gave it to another guy who said that he'll get it running, and it blew up.
Oh, no.
And nobody knows where it is now. But I absolutely heard from a Mattel employee. He remembers the car stinking like gas, running across the room at Mattel. So they really did make it. It really did work. The engineers were amazing. But of course, safety was a big concern. Gasoline and kids, probably not too great for the handlers to come up with a company that's always worried about safety. So alas, Sizzlers came out with little teeny electric engines, a little safer.
Gotcha.
Because, it's so wild to me because I was like just thinking, oh my gosh, an internal combustion engine running in the house. And it's funny, we just had Jakarta Diecast Project, who's like this super famous Indonesian customizer. And we asked him what one of his ultimate impossible, but he would like to make possible things was, and he wanted to have an actual internal combustion engine running in a car. Now, I think he wanted something a little more realistic than this, but we're going to have to go tell Yogi that it's been done.
Yeah, it's been done.
And blow his mind a little bit.
Just a prototype.
That's
was never released to the public.
Just a prototype, but yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's got like this, it looks like it's got a little funnel in the top. Would they like just drop her gasoline into it?
Yeah. Two drops got it going.
Yeah,
amazing.
It's tiny. Like that's the crazy thing is because you think about it, 1/64 scale, that thing must have been like cooking. Like it must have been so fast.
Yep.
It was loud and fast, they told me. Loud and fast. They probably had a problem getting the traction. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It probably spun. You had to go to a drag strip and burn the wheels a little bit to get it going.
Exactly. It's a shame that it is no longer with us, but what a story.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny because you mentioned the crack ups and flip outs. Those were the ones I grew up with because I started around 85, 86 as a kid getting them. And those were Larry Wood's designs, all the crack ups and the flip outs and stuff. And I thought those were insane and so cool because I was always fascinated by special effects and stunts with cars and cars getting damaged and cars getting crushed by monster trucks. And so to have a car that you could crash over and over again on purpose and have it look damaged and then reset it and do it again, I was in heaven.
Yeah.
I finally this year completed my crack ups collection. So I got one of each of the castings.
Oh, good for you. Well, now you need to call me up because I have the prototype.
Oh my God.
There you go.
Of course you do.
Yeah. All handmade, brass, springs, hit something, flips out. Amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. I can't imagine that would get, I'd imagine with brass, they'd bend after a while though. So probably not something we actually crash. But so let's talk about the prototypes here. So you're known for buying that most valuable, the Beach Bomb prototype, but was that your first prototype?
That was my first prototype.
Wow.
I was a regular street collector. And when the opportunity came to get what I call the king of a hobby, I actually was, how do I say this? It wasn't worthy because there were so many collectors that were much more knowledgeable than me, so many collectors that had better collections. I literally think I just did something, how do I say this? Slightly crazy. As my wife said, it was around 1999. If you remember, which you were probably pretty young, there was a stock market frenzy going on, stocks going crazy, tech stocks. And everybody of my coworkers were buying tech stocks. And my company had just sold and they gave me a $50,000 bonus to stay. And all my coworkers were taking a bonus and buying AOL stock and this stock. Half the companies aren't even around anymore. And my wife, my wife said, what are you going to do with it? I said, I don't know. And then I read that article about this car possibly being for sale. And the article actually said the car sold for $72,000. And I said, darn, I would have bought it. And then 3 months later, another newspaper had the same article. You know how syndicates run the same articles every once in a while? And the last line said, the seller has bought a Dodge Viper, but is still waiting to complete the sale. I said, aha, here's my chance. The guy had a name. His name was Chris Marshall. Try to find Chris Marshall in the yellow and the white pages. There's 5,000 of them. Right. So I called the reporter, and the reporter said, ethics doesn't allow me to give you his name and number, but I'll call the guy. And then the guy called me, and we negotiated for over a month. And sure enough, somebody had put a deposit down and never finished it. And I was able to jump in and buy the car. And that changed my life. It certainly brought a real joy in my life of this hobby.
Can I call a timeout? I got to say, Bruce, you went from your mom calls you up in 99 and says, here's this box of cars, to now you own the most rare Hot Wheels in the world. Same calendar year. Look at that, guys.
There it is.
That's an amazing
There it is. I'm not going to drop this one. I'm holding it carefully for you. There it is.
Please don't drop it on our show.
Yeah,
that would be responsible.
Whoops. I'm just kidding. Isn't that a beautiful color pink? It's amazing, isn't it?
That's amazing.
Yeah. And actually, if you want to be technical, there's 50 or so rear loaders out there. There's only a couple of them in pink, but there's also only a couple of them that have the side loader base. It has the base of the second version.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes me excited is this is a prototype of a prototype. They made the rear loader beach bomb. It didn't work with all the accessories. And then they designed the car with the weight on the bottom and the surfboards on the side. And this was a leftover top of the new of the bottom put together. So it's a prototype of a prototype. So for Bruce Pascal, it like really fits the gill. And that's why there's only one pink like that one. So I hope that gives you a little history on that one.
And that is,
that's awesome.
That's Hot Wheels' first attempt to do a VW, right?
Correct. First attempt, one of the earliest attempts we think of ever using paint, a pink paint color. There's no real other, probably the first one that had just come out. And it was an attempt supposedly by Mattel to attract more of a younger female audience. And what did the boys do? That was the first one with the firecracker and the hammer. But today it's the most valuable car because they made less of them and they're very pretty. I think one of the greatest thing collectors like is we like to buy cars that are pretty.
Sure.
And that looked like gems.
As David mentioned, to go from like 0 to the most valuable Hot Wheels ever made, does that make you watch your back whenever you're around Mike Zarnock? You think he's got like some kind of like just waiting?
I don't know about that, but I will say this. When you started off by saying I have the greatest collection of Hot Wheels, I'd like to say I have the greatest collection of historical documentation and memorabilia around Hot Wheels history. I will blatantly, unselfishly say that. There are collectors. There's a guy named Mike, and I think he's in Oregon, and he has almost every single car made and many prototypes too. There are guys that have hundreds of prototypes. There are guys that have every red line, every black wall made. So there's collectors that have 50,000 cars. As I get 60 years old, my wife gets really nervous that one day that I'm going to pass. She has to deal with this junk, as she likes to say. So with that in mind, I'd rather have one car worth $1,000 than 1,000 cars worth $1 each.
Sure.
So as I get older and older, I pare the collection down to just 220 prototypes, and I'm buying less and less. I had 4 rear loaders at one time. I'm down to 2 now. So I'm trying to pair and get cars that have unusual stories. I'll tell you an unusual story about a Hot Wheel if you like.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Have you ever been to a McDonald's and you look on the wall and they have a picture of a hamburger, the perfect bun, sesame seeds are perfect, the ketchup is gorgeous, the pickles are defined, the lettuce is perfect, and then you order yours and you open it up. It doesn't look like that picture, does it?
Yeah.
Never.
In advertising, they always want to make a holy grail of the item and advertise that to the public.
Sure.
So when Hot Wheels was one of the first toys to really use commercials, Mattel started doing commercials, I think, in the early 1960s. So they needed a car, a Hot Wheel, that would go down the track and would look really good. So in 1968, this is before the chrome cars came out for the $1 used to send in. In 1968, for about 6 or 7 castings, they took the cars and they completely chromed them. And then when they chromed them, they chromed the bottom and the top. They never did that in any other car. There's only about 20 of these known in the world. I think I have one in this shelf. Give me a second to find one. I got one right here. This one's actually, if I can get it out of here, give me a second.
My heart rate is going up every time you pick up a car now.
So this car is actually the worst shaped one I have, but look at the base of this car. Is that blingy or not?
Gosh.
Yeah.
Do you see how it just shines like anything? And then look at the top. Now this is gold, so it's hard for you to see the effervescence, but do you see the shininess of this car?
Yeah.
This car was completely chromed and then painted. And in the words of the head of the Mattel engineer, quote to me, Bruce, we were instructed to make these look like they were Christmas ornaments. And they're very valuable cars. The last one sold for $30,000.
Wow.
And they made them in Camaros, Mustangs, Aura, Fleetside, Thunderbird, and Cougars. And I may have missed one, Silhouettes. And they're gems of cars. When I wrote a book years ago in 2011 on prototypes, I called the rear loaders the king of the hobby. I called the Overchromes the queen of the hobby. To me, they are just beautiful gem cars because they were made to look like that hamburger at the McDonald's.
That's a great story.
That's amazing. And you said they only made like 20 or 30 of them total?
There's 20 or 30 of them better. They have some beautiful open hood scoop Mustangs. They recently discovered, when I say discovered, these are like rarely found. There's a couple, 2 or 3 strawberry Mustangs that are just the most unusual color, open hood scoops, which is super rare. And they're Overchrome. So you're talking about one of the hottest cars you can own. And it just looks like a Christmas ornament. Pretty amazing cars. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here that I have handy here to show you that I think just is just so cool. Here's one. Have you ever wondered when you drive down the street and you see a Porsche and then you see the word Porsche on the car and it looks perfectly proportioned to you, but if you walk up close to the car, there's metal bending and angling. So when Hot Wheels decided to do a tampo machine that they could stamp things on, you couldn't just tampo on whatever it said on the side, Chevy, because the H would be shorter, the C would be larger. So before computers, they made a grid on a car. So do you see the grid?
Yeah.
So this is called a grid car. And what they would do in 1976, they came out with a Porsche with like stripes on the side or sometimes wording. Maybe it even said Herfies. This grid would take up and figure out what are the changes they have to make to the painting to make it look like it's very readable as it comes down a track. And those are called grid cars. And again, they only came from the factory. And one day an employee called me and said, hey, Bruce, I have a shoebox of some fun stuff. Do you want me to send it to you? I said, sure, send it to me. In the box were 45 grid cars.
Wow.
All in resin and some in metal. That was one of them. So that's how you learn from the hobby. Sometimes you can find special cars. This car looks like a regular Porsche to you, right? Does this look like a regular Porsche to you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
More or less.
First of all, what does the base say?
Nothing.
Whoa.
Nothing. Look at there's a screw too holding it in.
Huh.
Guess what? This was hand painted. Why was it hand painted? The car wasn't made yet, but they needed the car for the catalog. So hand painted cars are some of the rarest prototypes you can get. It took these people 40 hours to make it perfectly. And if you took a microscope to it, you could see the strokes.
Huh.
But hand painted cars are pretty cool. And then sometimes, and by the way, this is just one fun tray. Sometimes for prototypes, this is one of my favorite cars. Sometimes for prototypes, they would make a car in a color that was never released. They never, ever released the heavy Chevy in gold. But here you see it. You also see it with these weird stripes. Why? That was the prototypes for the stripes. And then obviously it went to the department to discuss how do we make the car. And they decided, let's make let's save some money and not make the stripes so thick. And B, let's put them on ourselves and save some money. So finding a car that was never released in a color, that's the kind of stuff that gets me excited.
Yeah. And I noticed on your hand painted ones, Mark, you got to check it out if you didn't see already. He's got the Z
I did see
Datsun as a hand painted car, which is super cool because that's one of my favorite tempo. And you get a lot of money stalkers too.
That's a tough car to get. It's actually not in my collection.
Really?
Every time they were there, the price kept going up and I never bought one. But that is truly a great, remarkable, iconic car of the hobby, the White Z. I do have the first White Z. Actually, did I sell? Yeah, I still have it. The first White Z ever came out of the factory with a handwritten note, first shot, unpainted.
Huh.
And it dated 1976 on the top and signed by the Mattel employee.
Yeah, I gotta get my hands
That's
on
cool.
that.
That's amazing.
I have a good alarm system here and good cameras, trust me.
So you came from real estate, correct?
Yep. I lease office buildings in Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C.
So when you're in our nation's capital and you see an office building, there's a decent chance my name may be on the building or I'm putting a tenant in that building. So I do commercial real estate deals. Been doing it for 33 years.
Wow, that's incredible. Do you ever think about putting a Hot Wheels sign on any of the leased buildings at all?
It's funny. One of my goals of collecting, and one of the reasons I'm gladly and excited to do this with you guys today, is 21, 22 years ago when I told somebody I collected Hot Wheels, I had that same look that you get when you turn lights onto a deer. You collect Hot Wheels?
Yeah.
Now, 21 years later, after it's been on Pawn Stars, after it's been written up in newspapers, after shows have been shown, and it's now a much greater known collectible hobby. I'm sure you guys share that same experience when you tell people you collect it.
Yeah.
Sure.
So right now, I'm a proud collector that I'm more known for my Hot Wheels than I am for my real estate career. But even in my LinkedIn, I decided to say commercial real estate agent and collector of Hot Wheels. So I'm like public, and I get response from people sometimes emailing me saying, Bruce, I'm very motivated by your LinkedIn description because I'm a collector or I do this. And I've always been scared to put the two together. And I'm like, hey, I'm happy with it. It's fun because you never know. Somebody may tell me I got a box of Hot Wheels from my father or brother or sister sitting in my place. And that's how I end up picking up collections. So the more notoriety of you being a collector out, the better chance you can pick up another collection. And you all know that feeling. Don't tell me.
Yep.
When you're about to go pick up a box of 38 cars, you haven't opened it up yet, what that feeling is of looking inside that. And I get that experience a lot because I cross-market myself as a real estate agent and a Hot Wheel collector.
Sure. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I think last year, really, I changed my LinkedIn profile from just being a marketing guy to a marketing mechanic and put a picture of my Plymouth Valiant that I spent 7 years restoring with my wife and we've won awards with. And Flying Valiant is what started my YouTube channel. It was called Flying Valiant for a while and then it became a custom channel and now it's become this. And I was like, you know what? It does no harm. Nobody's going to go, oh, he has a hobby.
Yeah.
Let's not hire.
Yeah.
There is no harm in that. And to show that you're passionate and that you have more to you than just a resume, I think is very important in today's market for sure. Because you've got to find a way to stand out and be interesting. And for this, I love it because it shows people that I'm curious and creative and do mechanical stuff and I do hobby stuff. And that's like people would say, so you're going to start a YouTube channel? Like, what if your job finds out you're doing it? So what? It means that I know how to make videos and post them and market myself. This is all translatable stuff. To be a collector, you've got to be good with money. You've got to understand storage and responsibility, which that's a question I wanted to ask you. And you mentioned the security system, of course, but to have the responsibility of preserving these cars, what are some of the steps that you do? What are some of the ways, like you've got these cool little bags that you keep your cars in, but tell us a bit about those and some of the other ways you preserve.
I found these little teeny plastic, I don't know if they're plastic is the word or acetate. And basically I try not to touch the cars as much as possible. And I store them in this because 2 reasons. Number one, if it moves around in a case, it's less likely to move around and it fits in neatly in the case. So what I do is to give you an idea, is I put all the prototypes. You may not be able to see it, but this is a tray with a top and it goes into a safe. And I have 4 of these trays with all of my prototypes in there. So they're not going to move around as much if they're in that tray. And then a lot of my documents I've actually framed. If you want, I can attempt to pick up the computer and give you a quick idea what this place looks like. I don't know if you want to do that or not. We can try it.
Sure.
Let's try
And
it.
this may answer some of the questions.
Yeah, why
so I can't see what you're seeing. So hopefully you can see right here.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of my
Right.
office.
Yeah.
Then you walk into this room. Do you see the design of the Cockney cab right there?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's the original, dated May 13th, 1969, signed by Howard Reese. Then let's go into this room, which is one of my galleries. On the wall, perhaps you can see the original drawing that Howard did for the Noodlehead. Maybe you can see the grocery wagon, Larry Wood, other designers, and I'm only showing you a tiny bit of each of these rooms. Remember I told you about the snake and mongoose poster?
Yep.
Yeah.
There it is.
Like the mongoose.
That's the original artwork.
Nice.
There's no Hot Wheels written on it. Do you see all these printers' proofs of the packages?
Yep.
And then over here, original gas station items
That's
for
cool.
$1.79. Check it out.
Yeah.
And then in this room, I hope you guys can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you like German Hot
Yep.
Wheels, there's the Heist Rider display.
Did you get all?
Here's the prototype of the first case. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah. Cleared.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And now you go into here's an original display. If you went to a store to buy the original posters.
Nice.
And now we go into the warehouse. So hope you can see this.
Gosh.
This gives you a little bit of an idea of what the whole warehouse looks like. On the walls are original posters, original every Japanese Hot Wheels ever made. Over here's another gas station banner, an original Hot Wheels pinball machine, top and bottom. I traded this to Mattel, the original Kyle Petty outfit he wore in a race. Gas station banners, paperwork. Here's my favorite shelf. Hopefully you can see in here. Do you see a picture of the snake and mongoose?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the original artwork for the package.
That's super cool.
Do you see the wood Ferrari up here?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the original mold, wood mold to make the Ferrari right next to it. You see the original Corvette?
Yes.
That's the original Corvette mold
Yep.
to make the Corvette. Here's original packages. There's a 1968 store display on the bottom. There's the original wood mold for the bifocal. Here's an original display in plastic from England. You can actually see Roger Moore holding it in a picture. Here's original Superchromes. These are all blueprints. Here's a whole row of resins. Even the cars on the bottom are fake. They're all made out of resin. More grid cars, all prototypes. This was the Camaro that you saw when you walked into Toys R Us in New York before it closed. A collection of different box art. Couple fun cars. Here's the collection I just bought. 5,000 cars on the wall. And then I don't know if anybody collects weird stuff like Yatme, Euros, and play art, but you ever heard of play art before?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's some play arts. Don't know much about them.
That's awesome.
Some Tamikas,
Oh my gosh.
Norevs, Shukos, Hot Wheels. So
I think he needs us to come over there and help organize.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking.
I need a lot of help,
Yeah,
guys. So that is my
we will.
warehouse little quick
I think
tour.
that's a
Hope I didn't put you to sleep on that, but it's
that's
kind of fun.
No, that's yeah, I think we're going to have a diecast breakdown field.
I'm ready for you guys.
Hey, Bruce.
I need your help to appraise all.
So, Bruce, did you get the 51A, the missing Japanese piece out of that collection?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes, I did. And I bought it on eBay Japan.
There you go.
And I paid $200 for it, and it's only a $50 car, but I never could find it, so I said, I'm still going to buy it.
Heck yeah.
Pay all that shipping charges from
Mhm.
Japan. I had to complete that.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. You must have
Yeah.
read that article.
I did.
That's
Yeah. Bruce, I know we're almost out of time here, but this has been an absolute delight. Before we go, though, I just wanted to ask, and maybe the answer is the obvious one, but if you had to pick one car or one item from your collection that you felt like this was your favorite, not your most valuable, but like the one that you're like, this really feels like me. This is the essence of me and my collection. What item would that be?
so I feel compelled to say the Pink Beach Bomb because it's the car that
Of
changed
course.
my life. But if you had to remove that car from the equation, the Overchrome antifreeze Camaro
Ooh.
is a stunningly
Mm.
beautiful car. It's that McDonald's analogy I told you of the hamburger. The car is just stunningly beautiful. It shines. The Camaro, I always loved how Hot Wheels could represent in such amazing detail, 1/64 scale, the actual car. The color antifreeze, is there a cooler color than that? It's just so cool. That would be the car that if I became 80 years old, my wife said you have to sell the collection. They'd obviously want to take the pink beach bomb. That would have to be part of it. But if I said I want to keep one car, it would probably be the antifreeze Camaro. It's just a beautiful, stunning car. Great question. Love it.
I was curious because all the collectors I know, and this is something I just picked up because, like I mentioned before, I have a 64 Plymouth Valiant. I've had it since I was 15. It's my first car. And I kept it because I get the feeling you and I are little kindred spirits and that we do something all out. And for me, it was every time I met somebody and they would have the most beautiful classic Corvette or they'd have the most stunning Mustang or whatever, they'd say, I would trade this car in a heartbeat for my first car again. And what was it? And it was like a 74 Gremlin or it was like a
Levi's.
Exactly. It was always something like some grandpa car or some old Continental or something that would have been a $300-400 car at the time. And they're just like, man, I would do anything for that car. And then when Papa John did his whole campaign where he sought out and got his Camaro back that he sold to start the pizza business, I actually have two of the little Johnny Lightnings that are the recreations of his pizza car with the little pizza delivery thing on top.
Story.
But yeah, that was my thing too. And so for me, I know that with a lot of collectors, there's always like, they've got the premium item that they're known for, but there's always this little one that's got their heart. So that's
my
cool.
Valiant.
Share that with us.
There you go.
There you go. A Camaro is Bruce Pascal's Valiant.
Yep,
the quote.
There's the title.
Stick with it.
No, I love it. Bruce, again, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate your time. We would love to have you back on and geek out more about diecasts with you. There's a lot of stuff that we had to pass over today, but thank you again. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you. And thank you guys for what you do for the hobby. You're an integral part of the hobby. You raise our prestige. You connect collectors around the world. So thank you for what you do and keep going and keep that Valiant running. Okay.
Yeah,
will do. Absolutely.
Thank you guys.
Thanks so much, Bruce.
Thank you.
You got it.
Don't touch the dial. Diecast Breakdown will be right back after these messages. Hey kids, here's your chance to win a cool prize from Diecast Breakdown. Enter the following word or phrase into the YouTube comment section of this episode.
Today's word is sweet.
Winners will be selected 2 weeks after the air date of this episode. Be sure to subscribe for more great Diecast content and more chances to win fabulous prizes on Diecast Media Network. And now, the thrilling conclusion of this week's episode of Diecast Breakdown.
That was incredible. I thought David had a silver tongue, but man, Bruce can spin a yarn, can't he?
Fantastic interview. I loved it.
Yeah, I loved that. I wasn't ready for all the visual aids, but hey, that was amazing. I was not expecting him to take out that beach bomb and actually show it to us on camera. I was like, hey, you can talk about it. It's probably in a vault somewhere. No, it's in a plastic bag, and so it just happens to be by him on his desk. And like, oh my gosh, please don't drop that. Yeah, like he had that moment where he fumbled the other one.
It's built Hot Wheels.
It is Hot Wheels. Exactly.
Product. It'd be fine.
But and then it would gain value because it was damaged on this legendary show. We could,
fair.
Absolutely. There you go. So Bruce, again, thank you so much. That was an absolute delight. Thank you all for watching and listening wherever you are. Thank you to our patrons who you're seeing right now. They are an incredible, important part of what we do. We love each and every one of you. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe, share, hit that little dingy thing because it makes such a nice sound. And you'll never know if it actually does make a sound until you give it a try.
There you go.
Yeah, you don't know.
Exactly.
You don't know.
And we'll see you again real soon with another episode of the Diecast Breakdown. So, as always, thank you for coming along with us for the ride. So until next time, stay fresh, cheese bags.
See you guys.
Bye now.
Bow, 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 bow.